talking about these books. Let's go. Hey everyone, this is my quarterly wrap-up. I'm going to be going through everything I read in the last 3 months of 2025, October, November and December. I got through 11 books. One of those was an audiobook. I read about 3,600 pages, so I guess that's 1,200 pages a month, which I guess is divided by 4 equals 300 pages a week. Divide by 7, yeah, roughly 40 pages a day. I find that that's kind of manageable for me. First up, I finished Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was awesome. I really love this book. There are these two sisters. One's thrust into this position that she wasn't ready for. The title comes from the fact that there is this imminent war between this kind of countryside kingdom and this kind of main empire, which is really concentrated in one city. I find some of Brandon Sanderson's world building a little bit thin at times. It's like everything is concentrated in this city. You don't even get a map in this book. And so it does feel like the rest of the world is kind of almost missing. It's a funny thing to say about Brandon Sanderson because his world building is great. There's a very cool magic system from Sanderson. You expect that. There's all this kind of stuff with colors. Anyway, one of the sisters is sent off to the main empire and is supposed to marry this god king. Now, there are all these gods. Think of like Greek gods, Roman gods. They're really just humans with special powers. Anyway, she has to marry the equivalent of Zeus, I guess. And so there's this whole thing about the two sisters kind of being in reversed positions, which is fun to follow through the book. And it's a decent length. This is 650 pages. I didn't feel bored at any point. There is a Sanderlanche. The ending, I know Mike's book reviews said this is a 5-star book with a 2-star ending. And I have to agree with that. The ending felt very abrupt and it was like, oh. Which is unfortunate because the rest of the book is so good. And now that I've finished this, that means my next Brandon Sanderson will be The Way of Kings. After that slightly chonky book, I read Lyra's Oxford by Philip Pullman. Now this is set 2 years after the ending of his Dark Materials. It's very short, and this is quite a contrast. After reading Brandon Sanderson, whose prose is very plain, it's very readable, but it's not exactly going to win any awards for kind of how beautiful it is. Whereas when you read Philip Pullman, there's such a stark contrast between Brandon Sanderson and Philip Pullman. The writing in this is very nice. Having said that, a lot of short stories, you kind of read them and it's like, yeah, that was fine. It doesn't blow your socks off, and that's true in the case of this one. Next up, I finished reading The Lost Worlds of 2001 by Arthur C. Clarke. I hugely enjoyed this. This is basically 2001, the extended edition, because there's about like 31 chapters of stuff that either was a first draft or they were chapters that Arthur C. Clarke wrote and they were intended to be in the movie, but they decided to cut them out just because they wanted to move things along faster. So as well as all that kind of deleted material, there's all sorts of stuff in here like journal entries, the call sheet for the first day of filming, lots of interesting tidbits about the making of the film in conjunction with writing the book. Like one of the things is he actually thought he had finished writing this and was ready to publish it, and then it took about another 2 years before the film came out, and then finally this was published a few months later. So this is highly recommended if you can find a copy of this book and you've read 2001 and enjoyed that. This is a fascinating look behind the scenes. I'm continuing my read-through of the history of Middle-earth. This is Volume 5, The Lost Road and Other Writings. And this was really cool, this one, because it has Tolkien's time travel story, which, if you don't know, C.S. Lewis and Tolkien agreed to write both a space story and a time travel story. They kind of flipped a coin or something. And C.S. Lewis wrote his space trilogy, and Tolkien was supposed to write his time travel story, but he never finished it. There's like the first few chapters in here. And it is actually tied in with his whole Legendarium, the Middle-earth stuff. So that part of it is really interesting. The rest of this book is pretty cool as well. There's like the Atlantis myth, the fall of Numenor. There's a whole bunch of stuff about language. In fact, there's an etymology in here, so you can find the kind of stems of words. So like, if you look up Mor, that means black, and Dor means land. So literally Mordor is the black land. So that's pretty cool. And then there's also a whole bunch of, what do they call them? The annals. So it's like, on this date this happened, on this date that happened. All the things that happened since the creation of the world through the first age, second age, third age. Third age? I think it might be actually just the first 2 ages. Or is it 3 ages? 2 ages. First age? Well, anyway, it's everything that happened in Valinor, which is the kind of land of the gods over in the west, and then the Annals of Beleriand, which is the section of Middle-earth to the west of Middle-earth in Lord of the Rings that finally gets kind of swamped by water. And now I get to go on to volume 6, which is about the actual writing of Lord of the Rings. Then I finally got around to continuing my read-through of the Liveship Traders. Obviously, this is book 2 in that, which is part of the Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I did this as a buddy read with Ed over at Dutch Greybeard, and that was really cool. We basically took notes after we'd read a chunk of chapters and kind of emailed them to each other, and it was interesting to see his perspective versus my perspective. I was like concentrated on what is going to happen in the future, whereas he was kind of interested in, well, what does that mean about what has happened in the past? I mean, I was interested in that as well, but I think I was trying to make predictions about what would happen in the rest of the book. Anyway, this is a fantastic book. I've said it multiple times and other people say it. Robin Hobb is just so good at writing characters. They're just so unique and it's just so interesting seeing how they interplay. This is from a third-person limited point of view, so you're in the heads of the various characters. So you'll be in the head of this teenager and they'll be having these ridiculous thoughts, and then you'll be in the head of the grandmother kind of trying to deal with this ridiculous teenager. So that kind of thing is always fun. There really aren't any negatives about this book. I mean, it's 900 pages, but it didn't feel long at all. I guess you could say there's one kind of bad character who just feels a little bit too ridiculously bad, like totally incompetent. But that's a minor thing. I am going to take a break before I go on to the third one. These are chunky books, so I'll be reading the third one sometime this year. This one's for Sam Not So Wise, the player of games, Iain M. Banks. This is the second book in the Culture series. It's been so long since I read the first one. I remember the first one feeling kind of, yeah, there's interesting concepts in there, really interesting world building, all sorts of cool stuff in these books. The storyline I felt meandered a bit. This is only 300 pages. I felt for the first 200 pages that it was like, yeah, can we, I don't know, have some sort of like goal? No, that's not true. The first 60 pages I was kind of thinking, oh, what's the point of this book? Around page 70 you get to something that happens and it's like, okay, I kind of see where this is going. Around page 140 things start to really happen. And I think the last 100 pages are the definite highlight of this book. I think so far this series, this is the kind of book where you're reading it for the world building and the ideas. And in that regard, these books are excellent. You get these ring worlds around stars that are just like millions of kilometers long. There's all this kind of techno engineering. You just get these glimpses of these colossal structures. It's kind of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they build planets just for fun. Ultimately though, I think this one left me a little bit flat. So I'm hoping that the next one, Use of Weapons, is a step up from that. Next up, I read the second book in the Immortal Investigations. This is The Mortal Knight by Michael Cronk, fellow booktuber, awesome channel. Cronk the Book Guy, you should totally check out his channel. This one you can tell he's really hitting his stride as a writer. There's a lot of cool world building and you can tell it's like that idea that, okay, I am a writer, I have an unlimited special effects budget because I don't have to pay for computer programmers, I can just write whatever I want. So I can tell that he's having fun with that aspect of the book. It's a very well plotted book and there is some spice in this. Yes, I don't know whether you'd call it romantasy, but it definitely borders on that. And there is some ideology that Cronk as an author, it comes through in the books, not as much as the first one. In the first one there was definite ideologies coming through very strongly. In this one not quite so much, but that's a minor thing. On the whole, this was a pretty enjoyable read. I continued my read-through of How to Train Your Dragon. This is How to Ride a Dragon Storm. This is book number 7 by Cressida Cowell. In this one, there's a swimming race, and whoever comes last wins. And they sail to America. And I have to say, I think that looks like Trogdor. Anyway, it's fun as always. I continued my read-through of Fighting Fantasy. This is book number 6, Deathtrap Dungeon, and this is a highly regarded one. I think Ian Livingstone has said that this is his favourite of all the books he wrote. It's also been converted into computer games, I think a board game as well, and it lives up to its name. I think there are 31 instant deaths in this book, so quite hard to get through if you're playing it properly. And of course I'll have a full review of that at some point in future. And the last physical book I finished was Biggles of the Camel Squadron by Captain W.E. Johns. This is the 3rd Biggles book. This is basically a bunch of short stories that were written for various magazines and collected up into this. This is set in World War I, so it's all flying biplanes. Lots of action and adventure, and I actually learnt stuff. There's a glossary at the start. Lots of terms around World War fighter planes and all sorts of war-related stuff. That was a fun book. And then last of all, I actually finished listening to Douglas Adams' The Ends of the Earth, which is an audiobook put out this year, or 2026, and it has a bunch of audio that has never been heard before, audio that was on Douglas Adams' hard drives, him talking at conferences, various things, and also new interviews with people that he knew. And it's kind of split up into these chapters about various topics like economics or politics or religion or sci-fi, and it's delving into what he thought about these things, how he approached them. And it's all presented very well by Arvind, Ethan, David. At various points in time there's like special effects as though you're listening to one of the Hitchhiker's radio plays. Surprisingly, probably the stuff about economics is the most interesting. He gets on an economist to talk about the stuff that Douglas Adams thought about how economics could work. And that guy's fascinating to listen to. In other parts, well, in particular, there's one part where he's interviewing Max Landis, and that is awful. To tell you the truth. Comes across as a bit of a pillock, really. But ignoring the lame parts, I really enjoyed listening to that. Highly recommended. So let me rearrange this into rank order, and let's see what the book of the quarter was. All right, it was a pretty good quarter. I did not have anything below a 3.5 star. So these are all the 3.5 stars. Lyra's Oxford, it was okay. How to Ride a Dragon Storm, that was quite fun. The Mortal Knight, great plot. And The Player of Games, I couldn't quite give this one 4 stars. It's 3.5 stars for me. Then we move on to the 4 stars, Biggles of the Camel Squadron, that was just fun. The Lost Road and Other Writings. Only 4 stars. There's a lot of cool stuff in this, but the etymology stuff can be quite tedious. I must admit to skipping quite a bit of it, so that's why it's only 4 stars. The Lost Worlds of 2001, really enjoyed that. And then we move on to the 4.5 stars. There are no 5 stars, so spoiler warning there, no 5 stars, but these are all 4.5 stars. Deathtrap Dungeon, really cool fighting fantasy. Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, really like this. And the book of the quarter is The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. This was definitely a highlight. So that's everything I finished in the months of October, November, December. I did actually have 3 other books on my TBR, which I have not finished. I've almost finished. I am reading Regina's Song by David Eddings, and I've got about 100 pages to go as of recording this. I did not get to Diamonds Are Forever. I'll get to that one soon, I think. And then I did not get to 6 Sacred Stones. I'm not sure when I'll fit that in. So that's everything I read in the last quarter of 2025. Looking at this pile, I'm always struck that it is kind of an eclectic bunch, but that's what you come here for, right? Leave a comment if you've read any of these, tell me your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video, my TBR for the first 3 months of 2026.